Hey, what's up guys? So we are here and I have the system up and running. I've been running it about 2.5 weeks now, I think, and everything's doing great. I've got a bunch of different tomato plants in here and several different varieties of pepper, a pumpkin, and a cantaloupe down there. Now, planning this build, what I wanted to do is I wanted to avoid using like a PVC drain, because I thought about doing that and I would have to have it mounted on the outside of the deck and then have to have my flow just right, and then I'd have to deal with the stairs or try to run it under the deck. There's not much room under the deck. So I got thinking and I said, well, that's just not feasible to do it that way. So then I got the idea to use 1/2-inch irrigation line to not only deliver the nutrient, but to return it to the reservoir. And that was kind of iffy, you know. There's a whole lot of setup to not really know if you're going to get any flow, because everything out here is just flat. I'll show you that in just a minute. This is only half of it. There's this much right over there. One of the other goals that I wanted to do with this was to have the reservoir underneath the house, because it stays a lot cooler under there. In the summer here, it'll get up to 100, especially back here on this porch. So yeah, that was pretty important for me. I just think that the plants will do a lot better as it starts to warm up here in the south. And I also wanted to have it there to try to prevent mosquitoes from getting in there. And I figured, well, if it's under the house and you've just got a 1/2-inch line run into it, you can use a big tote and use the lid on the tote, and maybe that'll just keep them out completely. So we'll have a look at how this is working. So here we are right next to the reservoir under the house. I'm going to go ahead and override the timer and talk to you about it while the nutrient circulates and comes back around. Okay, so I built this platform to somewhat level the ground up in here, because I couldn't just have that on this unlevel ground. Well, I suppose I could, but it would be crap. The lines are over there. You see them in front of those crates. The drain line is suspended from the rafters with wire to give it the right slope. This is, I think, a 64-gallon tote. And we can see the outline, the one bringing the nutrient on to the plants on the right, and the return is on the left. The pump I'm using, and this one is bigger than the one I used for the broccoli. I'll post what size it is right here, because the 800 liter an hour or whatever it was pump I used on that one, it just was not cutting it. It looks like it's, there we go. It's starting to come back. There's been a few mosquitoes to get in here, but I think I got that taken care of, and every time I come in here, I'll bring a little dip net and go fishing. Those are, I think they're 5/8. I'll correct myself if they're not 5/8, but they're stainless steel bulkhead fittings that I picked up off Amazon. They fit perfectly that 1/2-inch line, 1/2-inch irrigation line, even though they're not 1/2 inch. I did buy 1/2 inch and they were way too small. Now the flow will get going a little bit better than that, but you get the idea. I removed one of the vents to run the hoses through, and on the other side of the house there's a similar arrangement on how I got power underneath the house. So this is our nutrient in line, our feed line, and I had to put a T in there to run all the way over to the other corner of the deck, and I'll show you why I had to do that. But these lines, they're wired so they'll stay fairly straight, and they're bungeed because when the sun's on them like it is right now, they expand. And if that bungee cord was not on there when they would expand, they would just wave and bow all the way down there, and you know that messes up the drain. You can get a shot all the way down right there. You can see the drain lines, drain line and feed line. This valve is for, it has to do with that T that we just saw over there towards the wall that runs all the way over to the other side here to our feed line. So that T runs over here, comes up here, and then joins in this side of the feed line. Because what was happening is I just had the one line going through, and it was having to push nutrient all the way over here, and then that was the end. So as it got further and further down the line, the pressure dropped off more and more. So with that line coming over here off of that T and joining in here, and the main line coming up here going through that valve, I can use that valve to slightly restrict the flow there, divert more flow this way, and even out the flow of the nutrient over the course. And this valve is in our drain. When we have storms or whatnot, I can turn that off. If it's not going to be like too bad of a storm, I'll just turn that off, flip this upside down, and then that way excess water will just come down here and drain out of our vent instead of it venting going to our reservoir. Now, we've had some supercells run through here the past several weeks. We had a big hailstorm several weeks ago. So I figured, well, I'm gonna have to do something to protect the plants during events like that, because they were just like every afternoon. So if you see these bungee cords, there's one there and then there's another one there, and I've got a cleat down here. There's a similar arrangement on the other side, what that's for is I've got an 8x5, I think, tarp that fits perfectly over that. And I use the bungee cords to fasten there. And I'll fasten one there. And the last corner to that cleat. And that gives me a nice slope. And I actually caught it in action. These are just a single cattle panel, 16-foot cattle panel that I cut in half and fastened to the rail. I just had this hardware laying around. I put one there, one there, and one there on each, and then 3 big zip ties, and that'll give the tomatoes something to climb on. Now, this whole thing is an experiment, and I don't know whether I should have just gone with Hydroton instead of this grow media. What I'm using is a 50-50 perlite peat moss mix. I'd read that, you know, it was because I can't get cocoa coir here. So I got to doing some research and I found out that yes, people do use peat moss in hydroponics. Somehow I missed in all my reading that peat moss is acidic. So I found out several days after I planted everything, when I got a measure on my pH, which was, my meter was off, so I ended up getting a Blue Lab meter. And it's a good thing because the meter I was using was reading about a whole point too high. I am having to make adjustments to the pH to raise it up. It doesn't seem to be out of control, and I don't know if that's only the peat moss or because these plants were started in soil. I just haven't gotten around to setting things up to start things and totally hydroponic. The hailstorm that we had took out pretty much all of our starts. We did manage to save a few of them, and those are these tomatoes here on the back. And this one, you can see it looks funky. That's because that is from a sucker. So the way I've been running this is 4 minutes every 4 hours. And that seems to be doing okay. One of the things about this particular setup with having peat moss and perlite together, if you put too much liquid in here and it doesn't drain fast enough, the perlite will settle on top and the peat moss will settle on the bottom, and enough of that will clog the drain. So here is how the drain looks, and I knew this wouldn't show up very well on camera, so I went ahead and I printed one blue. This one's slightly different because it's designed for a 5-gallon bucket. So it's got these these contoured washers, I guess you'd call them, that contour to the inside and outside of the bucket. And the threads are longer on this one. But this is what is inside here. And this is made using just 0 walls and I think 40 or 60% infill gyroid. That's all done in the slicer. This is 3D printed. And when they started to clog up, I figured, well, I came out here one morning and it was just like one of them was just floating on the top, and it hadn't drained at all. So I figured, well, you know what, there's a little bit more room on the threads on the inside here. I bet I could design something like this and then screw this on and stuff it with something like Dacron polyester. So I did that, and that's working out just fine. I just went ahead and replanted everything and put these on them with the Dacron in there. So yeah, that was quite an ordeal, but you know, I wanted it to work. So I feel confident that that'll be enough to get me through. And I haven't had any problems with any of the ones that I've done it to. Speaking of 3D prints, picked up this Blue Lab combo meter, and it was really awkward messing with these two probes and all that wire. So I just banged this out yesterday, and it just sits in there like so, and that is really handy. I keep thinking that I'm going to put these on Thingiverse or somewhere. I'm just too lazy to do that. I actually got a few things going on, so I don't know, maybe I'll get around to that someday. Well, that about wraps up this video. In the near future, since I've got this thing started and off and running, I'm going to be doing an NFT system. And I've already tested this design, and I think you're going to like it. And I will show you how to make your own once we get that up and going. I'm going to be doing some lettuce in the garage because it is too hot out here to make lettuce. We can cook lettuce out here. And also, we're going to be doing some comparisons of the ubiquitous pH-03 multimeter with the Blue Lab. In particular, I want to calibrate the pH-03 properly, and then, you know, compare it to see where it stacks up with the Blue Lab. I'm still wanting to see if that is a viable meter to be using, but this whole time I just wanted to be sure, and I just had to spend a little money to be sure. But I still want to know because I got some, you can get replacement whatever this part's called, probes for these, or at least you could at the time of making this video. All right guys, later.